Hello, and welcome to this episode in which we will look at generating our own version of the backrooms. We'll do this with two ways, one being where we'll model it ourselves, and another through the use of geometry nodes. So let's not waste any more time and jump straight into it. So before we begin, what are the backrooms? Wikipedia states that the backrooms are usually portrayed as an impossibly large extra-dimensional complex of empty rooms accessed by exiting reality. But visually, the backrooms are basically just liminal spaces. They're places that feel familiar yet completely wrong. They look like corridors, office hallways, and empty rooms you've seen 1,000 times, but they're stripped of people, purpose, and any sense of direction. The eeriness comes from the fact that corridors aren't meant to be lived in, you use them to get somewhere else. In the backrooms, you leave one corridor only to end up in another, and another, and another. Even if someone told you nothing is around the corner, you'd still feel uneasy because what looks like it's ending just keeps going. And it's that endless uncanny repetition which is why the backrooms became such a popular creepypasta. So now that's out of the way, let's actually get into what we're doing. So to begin, we're going to start with our physically building of the backrooms, and then we'll look into our geometry nodes after. So what I've done is I've gone into Paint and I've made a very simple variation of the backrooms that I want. The camera is going to sit here in the corner. We're going to have a corridor here, so we're not looking into the corridor, but I'm hoping that if we angle our camera just right, we'll have enough information to know that there is one there. And then on top of that, we've got another corridor here. This yellow represents we're going to have a beam between these two walls. We're going to have a random L-shaped wall here, just for the randomness that the backrooms has, so it's going to serve no purpose other than just existing. And then hopefully that will give us a narrow sort of gap to look through here. And then yeah, we'll just see how it looks. So yeah, to begin, what I'm going to do is delete all of those. Press 0 on the number pad to look at our camera, and then I'm going to go to camera to view, bring in a plane, and then I'm going to scale that up by about 10. So now that we've done that, I'm going to apply our scale and then just sort of move our camera accordingly. So like I say, I want to see just into the corner, as in I want enough information that there is a corridor there, but we're not directly sort of looking into it. And that should hopefully be enough, and then I'm just going to up this to about 1.75. So now that we've got that, I'm just going to turn off our camera to view, and now we can start building the walls. So what we can do is just bring in a cube, go into edit mode, and then just make it really small on the Y, something along them lines. Move it up on the Z by 1, and then hopefully that is the bottom of the wall is now on the floor, and then we're just going to snap this over to here. So this is going to go all the way across, so we're going to select this face and then just move it all the way over on the X to there, and then we'll probably make it so it's a 3 meter high ceiling sort of thing, so it's going to be GZ1. Then hopefully that will say 3 meters, which it does. So if we look here, we've got this. So we may just need to sort of extend our floor out a little bit there. And then same with our sort of wall, we just need to bring it out to about here. Alright, so now that we've got that, we can just simply duplicate this, move it over on the Y, go into edit mode, and then just select this face and then just bring it really far down, something like that. And then yeah, rotate on the Z by 90 degrees, snap it on the X, and then what we can do is we can bring this one sort of all the way down and snap it to about there. And then what we can do is actually maybe just bring this in on the X, something like that. and then what we can do is just sort of move that up, and then it ends about here. And then hopefully when we get our lighting and everything set up, we'll basically get an idea that we've got a corridor here. So now that we've done that, we can then also duplicate this again and just bring it over on the Y and just sort of put it about there. And then again, just grab these faces and then move it and snap it on the X to about there. And then just slowly bring it into about here. Maybe a little bit more. And then this is going to be our half wall. So if I just bring that down to about there. Maybe a little bit further. Just so we can only just see the floor, I reckon. So we'll have that. In fact, we'll bring it a bit lower because I'm going to put a wooden top on it. Which we may as well get out of the way while we're here. So Shift D. P, separate selection. You could probably keep it on there to be fair, but then we're going to do Alt S. In fact, maybe not Alt S. We'll just select these two edges, scale on the Y out a little bit, and then move that over on the X just a tiny bit, and then just extrude up. So that's our wooden top to our wall. So now we've got that, we can sort of bring in this piece over here. So while we've got this one orientated already, we'll just duplicate this, move it on the X, and then just sort of bring it about there, move it on the Y, and then snap it in. And then we'll just move that on the Y as well to move to about here. And then we'll move it over on the X just a bit to be about there, I think. And then same again, we'll just duplicate this, move it on the X, and then just sort of grab this back face if we can, and then just bring that down to about here, duplicate this, and then bring that on the Y. So the way I'm doing this is I'm just duplicating and then basically just moving. So then hopefully, yep, we'll have enough information that there's a corridor here. And then what we can do is we can again duplicate this, bring that over, and then we'll just move it up on the Z to be about there. And then we need to move it on the X to go in there, move it on the Y, and then bring it back and snap. Grab that, and then we want to move this on the X, and then just snap that in place there. So we've got this beam, might be a bit tall, so what I'm going to do is actually just bring this in. Yeah, I think there looks good. So then what we can do now is we can actually just snap that in, and then we can just, same again, select our face and then just bring it in accordingly. And then that's got our corridor. So now we just need to make our random L-shaped wall. So what we can do with this, actually, I suppose, is we could maybe bring this in. Because what I want is, even though this is a corridor, I want it to almost look infinite as well. So if we just bring that in, and then it'll just gradually get darker as time goes on over there. So what we can do with our floor is just duplicate this. Naming conventions have gone out the window as well for this. So we've got our floor there, and then, like I say, we just need our random L-shaped wall. So again, duplicate that, and then what we can do is just move that over on the Y. So that's not even on show, something like that. And then what we can do is duplicate, move it on the Y, rotate by 90, snap, and then snap again. Grab both, select both top faces, and then, you know what, maybe this can be a 3/4 wall. Something like that, and then we can see over the top sort of thing. So again, I'm just going to make it so this is in our camera view. I could always change our sort of aperture, but I think I'll commit to this for now. So this is just our random piece of wall. In fact, yeah, tell you what, let's bring it down. Focal length, I believe it's called, not aperture. So nothing too crazy. And then what we can do is just bring in one final wall. So Shift D, move it on the X. And then we want to bring that down on the Y. We just simply want to know it exists, but we don't really want it to actually basically be anything. So now that we've got that, what we can do is duplicate one last time, and then we can just fill in our background. So like that. Okay, so now that we've got that, we now basically need to just quickly bring in our ceiling. So we'll just scale that by, so if we've got 10, 20, so maybe 30 times, bring that up, and then we'll snap it to about there. So we've got this sort of space now, so we're going to save our progress, go into Material Preview, because what we need to do is we need to basically remove outside influence. So what I'm going to do is just rotate this on the Y, scale it by about 30. I mean, it doesn't need to be that tall, so then what we can do is just bring that over. So there's our final wall, so I'm just going to move this over on the X so it's there. And then same again, we can just move this over on the X to over here, because we want to remove all form of influence. So what we can do is, if we also just bring this over, and just bring that on the Y, and then this one also on the Y, because what we need to do is duplicate this, rotate on the Z by 90 degrees, and then this needs to just sit behind the camera. So it's about there, and then maybe just shift it over on the X. And then lastly, same again, we just need to box everything off, and then it's kind of difficult to see, so we'll just hide our ceiling for the moment, and then just bring this in. And just line it up to there. And then yeah, what we can do is just move this over on the X. Actually, yeah, tell you what, we can do that, and then we can shift this one over, shift that on the X, and then shift D, bring it down on the Y. Oh yeah, of course, we've extended this one. Fair enough, so yeah, we can just do that again, and then we'll just basically extend this over to about there. Okay, so how's this looking? So we've got our material preview and then our actual preview. We'll bring in our ceiling, which is hidden. Excellent, so everything's pitch black. So we go to our material preview, and then I'm just going to select our ceiling and then bring this in. So this will now be another chapter. So with this, what I'm going to start with is I'm going to start with the light for texturing. So if we bring up a shader editor and select our roof, we'll do Control A for scale. In fact, while we're here, we'll select everything, Control A and scale. So again, select the roof or ceiling, and then we're going to call this our ceiling lights, like that. And then what I'm going to do is, because they're all fluorescent lights and it's that sort of office grid pattern, I'm just going to bring in a brick texture. So I'm going to turn on, or put that in our base colour, press N to hide that, and N to hide this, get more into our view. Turn the offset basically to either 0 or 1, so it's actually square. And then what we want to do is we want to ramp up our scale. That looks about right. Yeah, somewhere about there, so we'll call it 20. And then what I want to do is I want to drive our colour 2 sort of down. Bring our mortar to maybe about 0.01. Yeah, that looks about right. And then yeah, what we can do is we can use this as our ceiling lights, and we can actually use emissive properties. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this into a color ramp, put it to constant, and then we're just going to Control Shift click to look at this. And then we just need the occasional light, so something like that. This is just a showcase. I know I'll probably say that in probably too many videos, but as in I'm not half this, it is, but it is like a, you know, we don't need to actually get the correct number of lights sort of thing is what I'm trying to get at. So if we just bring that in to about there, and then just look at this in our render preview. So if I turn this up to say 5, we now get this sort of look. So now that we've got that, we can then also look at something else. So if we go back into our material preview, I want to bring in another color ramp. And this time this will be based on our normal map. So I'm going to basically just pull these to the left a little bit. Look at this, and then same again. We just need to basically, in fact, yeah, I was about to say, I'm sure we already have this with our factors, so we can just then plug it in a bump, put that in the height, and then we can plug this into the normal. So yeah, now again, we can look at our render preview, look at this, and then we can maybe turn the strength up to say 20. Can't easily see the difference, but basically it should hopefully be there. And then lastly, we just need to bring in another, oh, that's a combined colour, we just need to bring in another colour ramp, and that's because our ceiling tiles will be white. I think we're really going to clamp it down to about there. And then yeah, so this is our basic sort of ceiling texture. So we could add a noise on top of this, and I probably will. But again, I'm not going into the full like sort of look dev side of this. So noise, texture, and then we'll just sort of again bring in a color ramp. We're going to put this scale to say 250. Increase detail, increase roughness to about there. And what we want to do is we want to bring in our black and white values. And then again, I'm going to just bring in another bump and then plug that into our height. And then if we look at this, we should have a little variation in texture. So if we bring in a mix color, plug that in, and then if we just add maybe, if we just have a look at this, so add makes things more white, so we need to darken things. That looks more like it. So if we go sort of there, and then maybe if we just don't have everything too dark. But yeah, I don't really want to eat into the time of this video by setting up our lights. So that is our ceiling light sort of done, so I'm going to just save there. So next up, we now have the floor. So the floor is sort of a basic grungy texture, I believe. So this is going to be our floor. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring in a noise texture and then plug that into the factor. Well, plug the factor into the base color. Ramp up scale. In fact, I'll put this into material preview so we can see it more. And then I'm going to select these other two, come down here, and then drop down and copy material to selected. And then yeah, so again, we're going to bring in a color ramp, and that is primarily just so we can sort of crunch the black parts down maybe a little bit, and then we'll increase our detail, our roughness a little bit more, not so much, and then again we're just going to bring our black value sort of down, bring the white up, and we just sort of want patches, but like sort of large patches. So maybe if we bring the scale down to quite a bit, something like here, and then what we can do is sort of bring that in. Oh, excellent. Yeah, something like that. Cool. So, yep, mix colour. And then this will go into our factor, and then we just want this sort of ugly, sort of yellowish brown sort of thing. So if we just make that maybe not too dark, but yeah, somewhere about there. And then yeah, we can just bring the roughness up. I mean, how does this look in render preview? Fair enough, yep, we got that. Oh, the other thing I completely forgot to sort of throw in is we need our light to be the right colour. So I have done this before, and I believe the colour hex value I went for was... Let's see, so it was FF, EB, AA, FF. Ah, now this is looking more like it. So our carpet, I've actually got the colours here as well. So I think our primary colour was something along the lines of, our primary was 8A, 7A, 5E. And then our other colour was, our secondary colour was C7, BDA3. Yeah, something along them lines. Alright, so now that we've got our sort of ceiling and carpet done, we can now look at doing our walls. So to start with our wallpaper, what we're going to do is select a wall and then go new material and then rename this our Backrooms wallpaper and then texture, something like that. And then we're going to bring in an image texture node. So I've downloaded the texture, so I'm just going to double click that, plug it into base color, and now what we need to do is we need to select all associated walls. I think I've just selected the same one 3 times, and then finish off by selecting the one that we've already changed, so we get this drop down and copy material to selected. So then the next thing to do is, if we go into our material preview, we'll see that this is a bit stretched along with that one. That one looks fine, I suppose, to an extent. But if we go into edit, preferences, add-ons, and then if we enable the node wrangler add-on, what we can do is select our image texture, Control T, and then that will basically give us our texture coordinate node and our mapping node. If we plug it into our object, into our vector, and then we'll see that everything somewhat looks the same. So basically, if we go to generated, we get this. We can see that those lines are closer together than these ones, and they're wider. If we go into normal, blank, UV is fine. We'd have to UV unwrap if we want everything to be the same size. But if we go into object and rotate on the X by 90 degrees, we basically get this. Our ends suffer. I'll showcase that this is an easy fix of doing -90, but for the time being, what I want to do is I want to get the main texture down first, because, for example, this is a bit of a sickly yellow, so I'm going to saturate that. What we can do is we can get everything right first, and then we can duplicate the texture and then add our -90 on the Y rotation, as opposed to doing our hue saturation on this and then going into our second texture and adding a hue saturation, and any adjustments we then just need to start basically repeating constantly. So to save time, like I say, if we add in a hue saturation node here, and then if we just dial this saturation down to about there, that looks alright. And then yeah, the other thing is we're not going for like movie production. If you are, then you probably might need to add a few more nodes, but basically I'm showcasing the setup to sort of getting started to making your own backrooms. So what we can do now is maybe add a noise texture, and it would help if I actually clicked Shift A, so noise texture, and then if we just look at the factor, increase the scale a little bit, increase the detail, also the roughness to about there, then what we can do is we can bring in a colour ramp and then just clamp down on our values. So that's quite nice, I think. And then we're going to use this to drive the factor of a mix colour. We're going to swap this to mix, and then we just need to see what's what. So if we select this, we'll see that the so we want those parts, so that is the white parts. So our wallpaper needs to be in the black part. Add that to the base colour, and then yeah, if we just make this sort of a dirty-ish sort of colour, and then what we can do is if we feel like it's a bit too harsh, we can sort of either dial the black back, or we can basically just start turning it a bit more grey and more towards the white. So I'd say that looks fine, personally, the way I see it. And then, yeah, lastly, the last texture we sort of need to do is this wooden top. So we're just going to call this our wooden top. And then, yeah, basically it's going to be another noise texture. Going to our material preview just so everything's a bit faster. And then if we just plug that in, I mean, that looks okay. Not as the final texture, but I'd say that has sort of a wood sort of smoothness to it. It is that, personally, I think the type of wood that we use is it's that sort of ugly brown. I believe it's you know, it's probably the colour of the time, but nowadays we don't really have. Is it mahogany? I'm going to Google this. Mahogany. Yeah, I'd say it's mahogany. That, yeah, it's. Here we go. If I bring this over. To be fair, it looks alright, but yeah, that. Yeah, I was never a fan of that colour, if I'm honest. Anyway, so I digress. If we just bring our colours into that sort of territory, and then yeah, we can add another noise texture, and then this one can be given a colour ramp to start clamping down on certain values. Maybe that's a bit too much. That can be our sort of knots, I suppose. So mix colour. Then what we can do is plug that into A, this into B. If we have a gander at this, go to darken. Huh. Wow, so subtle. Look at that. Okay, so if we just sort of there we go. So if we now look at this, and then if we sort of drag that up, bring this in so it's really dark. I'll tell you what, that's quite nice. I like that. Okay, so this is our texturing done. So hopefully if we have that, and then if we click F12, actually the ceiling is a bit off for my liking. It's just that, it's just great, and you can't even see the ceiling panels. So let's see where that might be going wrong. So this is the bit that goes towards our colour. So if we just put that to 0 for now, yeah, that's not exactly the best. Is it purely because of our lighting? Might be because of our lighting. So if and our normal, I suppose, is a bit excessive. Okay, yeah, I can. We'll do F12 and we'll see how this looks. Might need to bring the samples down from 300, but is it me or does this look overly lit? I'm also starting to notice that our wall texture back there is stretched. I'm sure there'll be a very simple explanation for this. Oh, duh, and we've also not done this. Anyway, simple fixes, we don't need to worry. So yeah, this looks a bit too clean. I believe that's the denoise that's kicking in on that one. So while we're here, we're just going to turn that down to say 100, and we're going to turn that denoise off. So yeah, what I was saying before is what we can do is if we just duplicate this, and then we'll call this our ends, and then while we're here, change that to -90. Right, yes, duh. So if we put that back there, select that face, material plus, bring that down, and then assign. And then same with this one, new texture, wallpaper texture ends, assign. So I have a sneaking suspicion that this is stretched because it's rotated. So if we do Control A and then confirm our rotation, fixed. So if you have that sort of issue, that is probably why. This might not be fixed by the ends. We'll soon find out. So yeah, plus ends assign. Oh, it was. Nice. This one as well. Plus down ends assign. Okay, so was that the only thing I said to change? That was stretched. Oh, everything looks overly lit a little bit, that was it. So if we bring that back down to about 5. Okay, we'll save our progress, and then I'm just going to render this out. So we're getting our shadows. This looks a bit more grungy, I'd like to think. Okay, that is very noisy. So one thing that I'll probably do as well is noise threshold. We'll just add a couple of zeros there. Tell you what, let's put it to 500 is probably a bit much. Let's have a look. It's weird because the plan with this is we're going to remove noise and then add it back in. And I'll showcase that when we come to the compositing section. So this is looking pretty good so far. I'm a bit disappointed in the fact that our corridor, you could easily miss that there is one to the right. I kind of wanted more shadows to be involved in that. We obviously can. We can put a light there with negative values. That is something we can do. Just in case you didn't know this, you can... Wait, hold on, where's our camera? So our camera's there. Oh yeah, so we do have a corridor. But yeah, what you can do is if you bring in a point light, and then if we just snap it to about there, and then move over to about there, if we put the strength to say -100, it should... Yes, there you go. It removes light from the scene. So that might be a bit excessive. So -2. -4. Alright, this will be the last time because otherwise the video is going to be way too long. So what I'm going to do is, again, finally F12, and then we're going to move on to compositing, and then we'll move on to our geometry node setup. Okay, so yeah, this is the image that we're going to basically play with, and yeah, so we'll now look at doing our compositing. Okay, so let's look into our compositing. So I'm just going to close this window and then head into our compositing tab, go to View, Fit, and then I'm just going to pull these down so they're not in the way. So the first thing that I want to sort of add is a glare node. and that is because I want our lights to sort of bloom. And then I also want to get a bit of halation, which is where our lights are pushed past their threshold and form a sort of foggy sort of look. I don't think we can massively achieve this in Blender, but we'll try. So yeah, we'll just have that way up there. And the other thing is, I just want to put the tint back in, so I need to find where my backroom lights are. So for my bloom, I've got it here, that it is F7, F0, C2, FF. So that is what we've got, and then, yeah, because this is bloom, so maybe... Anyway, yeah, so about there, that looks to me approximately right. And then, yeah, because it sort of has that found footage effect to it, we're going to add some chromatic aberration. So that looks a bit excessive to begin with, so we're going to bring our scale down to about... maybe about 0.78, something like that. And then what we can do is bring in a tune image node, and we're going to use this to basically boost the contrast. So we're going to basically increase our contrast to something about there, and then we're going to boost our colour as well. What happens if we just throw that up? Ah, yes, here we go. So we're starting to get these nice. I'm going to just turn down our chromatic aberration a bit more because our wall seems a bit crazy. So, in fact, our wall is just noisy in general. That's fair enough. So yeah, with our tune image, if we just increase clarity, oof, that is very dungeony, I would say. Have it about that, and then yeah, we're going to massively increase our detail. Maybe not so massively, somewhere about there, and then we can basically add the littlest bit of sharpening. Because I think if you sharpen things a bit too much, these start to go wrong. We'll add a slight vignette. I believe this is basically always added to things for some reason. We're going to keep it at a low value, I believe. So, but we'll definitely have it feathered by quite a bit. Yeah, somewhere around there. I believe we don't need to adjust our transform or anything, something like that. So yeah, and then lastly, I just want to add that sort of camera noise. So we're going to have a sensor noise node, and I believe, is it chroma is the color one? Yeah, so we're just going to, we sort of get this through our chromatic aberration a little bit, I think, but yeah, if we just, that's a bit much, bring it down slightly, add luminance noise. Yeah, something like that. You could definitely see some like little spaghetti monster of some kind just walking around the corner there, can't you? So maybe if we were to add a denoise somewhere, just so we can clean that side up a little bit. So maybe not there. If we had the denoise first, yeah, so we get that cleaned up a little bit. What does fast look like? Accurate. So, what if we mute that? And then, because we've got our noise threshold up, I'm going to keep that there. And then, if we just bring this down to say 100, let's try this again. So, let's have a gander at what we're going to get here. I suppose the issue that we also sort of have is, oh no, there we go, so we've got that back. So if we go back into here, if we just remove that anyway, yeah, so maybe now we can increase our chromatic aberration. That's a bit much. Yeah, I think about 0.078 was where it was at. Anyway, our bloom, high quality, the size, oof, nice. Anyway, yeah, so there we go. That is our backrooms. So this is the process that I'd go through if I was modelling my own. Alright, so just before we jump into our geometry node setup for the backrooms, I'm first going to clean everything up because this is a bad example that is being set, I suppose. So this is our ceiling, and then move to a new collection called ceiling, and then what we can do is 1, 2, 3, and 4, it's a new, and it's going to be white borders, or just a line to white borders. New collection, move to white borders. Then hide that, and we've got our floor, a battery name, floor, move the collection, floor, great, hide that, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I know that's the wall top, and that's a quarter wall, that's a 3/4 wall, and that's sort of a beam that goes across. For ease and speed of this video, I'm just going to rename all this to our walls. And then we do a new collection called walls. And then we make a new collection for this, which is going to be called our lights and cameras. Lights and cameras. So like that, new collection, and then this is our model backrooms. And then we're going to ceiling, like 4 walls, lights, cameras into there. And then what we can do is make everything visible, and then make everything not visible. There we go. So now that we've done that, we can save. And that concludes us physically modelling the backrooms. I'm going to make the geometry nodes a separate video, just so if you want to build them, you can watch this one, and if you're more into the automated side of it, then you can watch the other one. So if you're interested in watching that one, I'll link it at the end, during the end card. But if not, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.